Okay, nice to meet you, Stacey.
Yes, nice to meet you too. Sorry about that. I have no idea why I can't hear you.
Absolutely, no problem. So this is IIG South, and here are our students. We have online students as well, and they are all excited to hear more about like crystallography. So I told that you people are expert in the like you are expert in crystallography, and at the same time you are also a businesswoman, successful businesswoman, and
Yes,
also a strong member, a committee member of the Gemological Association of Australia, Victorian Division.
that's correct.
I'm saying I'm laconic, and yes, I have nothing more to say. The stage is yours.
Okay, beautiful. Well, thank you so much for having me. This is it's an honour. I've been teaching at the GAA in Australia for quite a few years now, and it's really lovely to see passionate future gemologists all around the world studying this incredible topic as well. So I'll start by giving you a bit of information as to how I got here, really, and how my career started, and where it is now for you as well. So I was always the child with her pockets filled with rocks on family holidays at the beach. I would always be collecting shells and anything shiny I would always pick up. So there's definitely been a love for stones my entire life, and pretty typical of children to like anything sparkly and unusual as well. When I was 8 years old, my family, we moved to Dubai for a short period of time. My dad was working there. And as you can imagine, a girl from the suburbs in Australia moving to a country that has gold souks was extremely overwhelming for me as a child. It was something I had never seen before, jewellery of that nature. And that was really an important time for me to really understand how passionate I was and how excited I was by the world of gems and jewellery. It left me in a state of awe most of the time, and still today, if I see beautiful jewellery, I get very excited. So my love and passion really was solidified at that time. And when I returned back to Australia, I was still, only 8 or 9 years old. But I continued to pursue my love for art and design. And so when I finished high school, that's actually what I studied at university. I became a graphic designer. But it was pretty clear after that the area that I wanted to work in was actually in the jewellery industry. So I was lucky enough to secure a role as a designer in a local Melbourne jewellery brand. And it was within about 6 months that I was like, I really want to learn more about these stones. And so I jumped onto Google. I had no idea that gemology was something that you could study, and quickly found out that it was. And within I think it was about halfway through the first class, I realised I was studying exactly what I needed to study, because I felt like I was surrounded by other gem and jewellery lovers and rock collectors. And it just felt really exciting at that time. So I returned back to study whilst working full time, doing my assignments very late at night, and juggling life and work and all the rest of it whilst I studied. And it was, during my studies that I really had a liking, and really was, whilst gemstones and jewellery really make me excited, it was crystals and crystallography that I found so fascinating and wanted to learn more and more about them. So in my own time, I would be collecting crystals and adding to my own personal collection. After working in the jewellery industry for 10 years as a graphic designer, marketing manager, jewellery designer, and every other hat that I had on as well, I did the accounts for that business as well. I decided that I wanted to go out on my own and create something for myself as well, and work more closely with crystals. So I actually started a Luna about 5 years ago with my mum, and I also left that role and worked part-time in the crystal import industry as well. So I was surrounded by big-scale crystal importing, so amethyst geodes, container loads full of crystals from Brazil, so on a very, very big commercial scale. But having a lunar gave me that space to really explore my love for fine mineral collecting, for really unusual fossils and meteorites and all the other wonderful stones that are available as well. So I sort of carved out this career in the crystal industry whilst giving myself the ability to continue to study in my own time and continue to be involved in the Gemological Association as well, whether that was helping out in the lab or teaching the students as well. And I also created a introduction to crystals short course, which working in the crystal industry, I found that a lot of people loved them and wanted to learn more and really wanted to learn the science behind how they form. So I created that short course about 6 years ago as well. And so, yeah, here I am. I work full time for myself, and I basically pay myself to buy and sell crystals for a living, which is absolutely amazing. I still design jewellery as well, still source beautiful faceted gemstones. I'm still actively testing faceted and raw stones all the time. And I couldn't think of doing anything else. And yeah, it's been really interesting because the world of gemology is an incredible field, and it does capture people from a few different industries, but predominantly it is the jewellery industry. And I find myself sort of with a foot in the jewellery industry, but predominantly I exist in the crystal world. So very passionate about crystals and gemology. So thank you for having me. So one of the questions that I was asked today, and if whoever is here that asked the question, if you'd like to maybe pop your hand up when I read out the question so I know who asked it, that would be great. The first question that I was going to answer was, do you think the field of crystallography needs to grow more? Whose question was that? Anyone in particular that's here? I can only see the main room there, so. Okay, so the question was, do you think the field of crystallography needs to grow more? The students tend to give more importance to common careers such as medicine and nursing. How do we bring the attention to the field of crystallography? And there was another question too, which was, what are the career opportunities for a crystallographer? I've mashed an answer together for these questions because they're sort of hitting the same topic, which is the field of crystallography and how it does actually span out across different fields and what are the different career opportunities. Well, the field of crystallography isn't limited to physical minerals and crystals as we study it when we're studying gemology. It actually spans across chemistry, geology, biology, metallurgy, physics, and the study of crystallography is used on living cells as well as superconductors and different protein molecules as well. So it does span across lots of different industries. And I recently met an incredible PhD student who was studying different fats and proteins, and crystallography was part of her PhD. So it's interesting to speak to other people that have a love and fascination for crystallography but don't necessarily have a collection of crystals as well. So it's quite interesting. So crystallography, it's the study of the atomic structure, atomic and molecular structure. And so for us as crystallographers, it's, or as gemologists rather, it's important to have a firm understanding of what's happening on the inside of a stone as much as what's happening on the outside of the stone. And it's a growing industry, particularly in the space of gemology and geology and the crystal industry as well. It's a growing industry, and it's said to be, you know, an industry that's worth over $1 billion as well, and rising. And the sales at the Tucson Gem Show have continued to rise year on year and year as well. The auctioning of crystals in mineral houses like Sotheby's and Christie's continues to grow as well, with pieces being auctioned off for tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of dollars as well. And with the crystal trade, particularly, there is almost a lack of scientific knowledge in the space as well. Sure, in mineralogy and in fine mineral dealers, there are a lot of mineralogists and geologists and gemologists, but the crystal collection industry is certainly growing, and it's, for me, I've carved out a niche role in this industry, and it's really served me well. So yeah, there is a huge space, and there might be roles out there, much like my role and position in the industry, that doesn't exist yet, and you might be able to find your niche and find how you can create a career simply by following your passion and following what you're really excited about. And if crystallography in particular is an area that fascinates you, there are certainly other areas and other industries that you can continue to dive into that topic and continue to dive into that topic and perhaps see how you can apply that knowledge to different areas like history or physics, as an example. So yeah, it's the study of crystals in gemology is really important. And I'm going to skip to one of the other questions now, which talks about identifying stones. So a question that I have here is, why does crystallography have this much importance in gemology? They're quicker and easier ways to identify rough stones. Look, there might be, and I'm sure if you're only identifying stones in a fully equipped laboratory, there's possibly lots of other equipment that you can use when you're testing your stones. But the fact is, if you're on the field, or you're at a gem show, or you're outsourcing, or you might be out, mining and fossicking, or on a different experience like that, the matter is that you're just not going to have all of the equipment with you. And what you're going to be using and relying on is your knowledge of crystallography, your knowledge of the external structure of a crystal, and using that to identify the stone. And, for that question, why study gemology at all if there are, some equipment, especially today, especially with identifying diamonds, there's some incredible equipment out there that can in an instant identify a lab-grown diamond from a natural diamond, or lasers and destructive tests that can identify stones fairly quickly. But I think us being gemologists, we're very curious about the knowledge and all the finer details that comes with stones, minerals, rocks, and gemstones. So crystallography is very important, and it's very, very useful. And yeah, as I said, you're not always going to be looking at a faceted stone. You're most likely going to be coming across raw stones as well. And yeah, whose question was that? Is it someone that's in the classroom there? No. So the crystal came before the gemstone, and it is easier in most cases to identify a stone in its crystalline form rather than as a gemstone. And I think that when you're sitting in a lab looking at crystals rather than looking at a set of faceted stones, there's so many identifying features on the outside that can help you identify the stone. I was thinking about this earlier today, and thinking of a situation that might be similar. And I was thinking of fruit, right? And this is a bit of a sidestep, but it's a good analogy anyway. So if you had three pieces of fruit in front of you, a banana, an orange, and an apple. And then you had three bottles of juice. One was, a banana smoothie, apple juice, and orange juice. You might not be able to, without smelling or tasting the juice, it's going to be easier for you to look at the pieces of fruit in their natural state to identify what they are. Whereas if you were to look at the orange juice, it could be mango, could be orange, could be mandarin, could be all sorts of different types of fruit that are that color. So if you consider that what we're looking at on the outside is very obvious evidence of what the stone is, then you will find understanding crystals and crystallography to be really, really important on your journey to identifying stones as well.
I have a question.
Yeah.
I think my student has a question. Sorry.
Yeah.
Of course, go ahead.
Hello, ma'am.
Hi.
Hi. It's morning here, so I will just tell you good morning.
Yes, good morning.
I have a question related to crystallography. So crystallography is basically a part in gemology. Like it's a small unit in gemology. If we really want to study about crystallography in a broader aspect, how do we do that?
That's a very good question. And I mean, I can answer it for myself because a lot of the additional knowledge that I've got over the years has been through my own research and really, connecting with other people in the industry as well. There, aside from going to study other areas where there is crystallography, if you go down the path of different types of applied science and chemistry and physics, there's certainly opportunities there, but I'm not sure if you want to go and get a whole new course under your belt. But there are some really incredible opportunities to connect with people that have a lot of knowledge in crystallography. There are gemological institutes, mineralogy societies, and geological societies and associations all around the world that you can connect with and attend conferences and connect with like-minded people that have this knowledge. I'm not sure what there is available over in India, but certainly in Australia and some other parts of the world, there are a lot of gem shows, and museums have quite a few collections on display where they might have some guest speakers attending. It's not something that's easy. You have to go and look for it, but there are some incredible events and opportunities around the world where you can connect and listen to talks about crystallography as well.
This comes out basically from experience. There's nothing certain courses available right now.
I'm not actually. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what would be available digitally, like virtually. If you were to do an online course, I'm not sure what there is. So yeah, perhaps the professors there might have an idea of what other institutes that there might be to study over there. It is a matter of practice and being curious and asking a lot of questions. There are some excellent research papers available online that you can download as well. For a lot of my own research, I've looked at some scientific papers online and have purchased some of those as well for extended reading also.
So you gained your knowledge basically yourself in crystallography.
Yes. So we have some extraordinary experts in Australia that teach crystallography as well. And being a council member in Victoria, it means that I've got access to have conversations with other gemologists about crystals as well, which is incredibly helpful.
Thank you.
Thank you. And a lot of the information and knowledge also comes through looking at crystals and collecting crystals, which is part of it too, right? It's seeing what's out there. It's going to the gem shows. It's adding to your collection and having those physical experiences looking at the stones and seeing what's available too. There's possibly some incredible suppliers of stones over there as well that you could connect with, and yeah, have conversations and have that shared interest with other people. Were there any other questions? Otherwise, I'll continue. Yeah, I will say though that crystallography, as you've just stated in that question, it is a small part of gemology. So it is a very, in Australia, it's only taught in first year. It's no longer taught in second year, and it is something that if you're passionate about, that it is on your own, out of your own volition to go and research and learn more about it. It is quite an overwhelming subject. I remember, when I started studying gemology, that it was very vastly different to some of the other subjects that we were looking at, and felt, a lot of people were overwhelmed with the subject too, because it's big. It's a big topic, right? There's a lot you have to remember and a lot you have to learn when studying it. So it's great that you're all interested in crystallography as well. So one of the other questions was, can we identify rough crystals only by the crystal structure, colour, and by the crystal habit? And there was another two questions that are quite similar in this with this same topic as well. How can we identify a tumbled or rough crystal which hasn't got any formal crystal shape or external features? And another question was, what is the process of identifying a crystal? So I'm going to kind of cover the answers to this all in one. So it's only in an ideal world where you've got a crystal that has perfect formation, perfect crystal faces, striations or different surface features that you can see. And quite often what you're looking at might be a stone that's been naturally tumbled from an alluvial deposit. It's been weather worn, or perhaps it's been broken. Sorry, there's some noise coming from someone. And so we're not able to actually rely on the external shape. There are quite a few tools that you can have that are small and pocket size that you can carry around. And two of these, three of them really, which come in very, very handy. And often when I'm looking to purchase stock or looking at smaller stones, I will have them with me as well, is your dichroscope, your spectroscope, and your loupe. These three items really are very, very helpful for separating stones. I think being able to separate a singly from a doubly refractive stone can be really the most helpful thing. And then your spectroscope, which can often show you very strong and very identifiable absorption bands in the spectra as well. And of course, this is not necessarily looking at the external structure, but it's giving us an understanding of what's happening on the inside. So are we looking at an isotropic, or are we looking at a doubly refractive piece of material? And again, your spectroscope is there to help separate certain stones that have the same color in them as well. So really great for separating things like ruby and garnet. But then again, if you've got your dichroscope, you'll be able to separate if they're singly or doubly refractive as well. And so having those tools on you, if you're identifying stones that don't have that external shape, you're sort of treating the stone much like you would if it was faceted faceted or a cabochon as well. In some cases, if it's tumbled and smooth, you might be able to check the density, your specific gravity, or if it's smooth, has a smooth surface, a flat surface, you might even be able to check the refractive index of it as well. I will often also have a UV light on me as well when I'm checking stones. The stones that I deal in range from, you know, beautiful, exquisite tourmaline crystals in matrix, all the way through to giant clusters of calcite from Bulgaria and China and different parts of the world. And quite often I will use my UV light as well to separate stones and to understand the trace element that might be colouring them as well, to see what colour that they fluoresce as well. But the process of identifying a crystal, so a stone that has the beautiful external structure, first thing I do is pick it up and feel the weight of it. And sometimes the heft can be a very obvious feature of separating stones. We know that quartz is silicon dioxide, so silicon and oxygen, and it's quite light to pick up. And then there's some other colourless stones like calcite and topaz, which have a little bit more weight to them as well. So sometimes simply by picking a stone up, it's just the weight of it that will help me get a feel for what it is that I'm holding. And of course, practice makes perfect, right? So the more quartz crystals you pick up, the more topaz crystals you pick up, the more you get familiar with what weight to expect when you pick these stones up as well. So the first thing that I will do is feel the heft, feel the weight of the crystal. And then if there's some colour in the stone, I'll rotate it and see if I can visually identify any pleochroic features. So am I seeing different colours or different intensities of colours down the different axes of the crystal? And often I'll use my dichroscope to further pick up those colour changes in and around the crystal to see if I can see 1, 2 or 3 different colours. I'll look at the surface features. Striations are, of course, one of the main surface features that can separate certain stones if they're going, I've got a crystal here actually, I've got crystals everywhere. But if they're running parallel to the C-axis or perpendicular, can be a really quick way of separating stones like quartz and topaz and tourmaline, even kunzite from other stones as well. And then I might use my UV light to see if there's any fluorescence. And this can be great for stones like kunzite and calcite, stones that have a really, and fluorite for that matter, that can have quite a strong fluorescent reaction. And then I may even use my loupe or a microscope if it'll fit under my microscope to have a look at some of the internal inclusions as well. Yes.
I have a question. How to check C-axis in rough crystal? I mean, it's difficult, I understand. Do you know any technique how to check C-axis in a crystal, in a rough crystal? I know it's difficult, but how to exactly check that C-axis thing? Like what do, like this cutter, they use this, crystal system so that they can cut it properly. Like for example, kunzite has like a directional hardness. So they understand where exactly they are seeing the rough crystal and they understand that C-axis. Do you know some kind of technique where we look at the rough crystal and we understand, okay, this is the C-axis? Is there any technique?
Yeah, so what you can do is, and this is really helpful when you have your dichroscope as well. So using the dichroscope to identify where the pleochroic colours are visible from. And quite often the colours will be intensified on certain A, B or C axes as well. So having a look at what colours to expect from that stone, what pleochroic colours, and which axes you would expect to see them from as well. Generally with a kunzite crystal, with the C-axis, you're seeing a stronger concentration of colour. So this is helpful for tourmaline, where you would see that, that stronger colour as well.
So basically with the help of a dichroscope, like we can find out like where exactly is the C-axis.
So yes, you can use your dichroscope to understand the orientation of the stone, that's right.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And yeah, do you have gem clubs over there where there might be stone cutters or lapidarists that might form a group over there?
Yes, we do have. Yes.
Yeah, becoming active members in lapidary clubs as well can be incredibly helpful for learning techniques like that as well. Yeah. Okay. I've got a couple more questions here. So one was, do you encourage destructive tests in the lab for identifying gemstones, and why? I think destructive tests is probably always the last resort, right? I think we would take a gemstone or a piece of material to as many people as we know before we do a destructive test. I will, and on occasion, do a destructive test, but generally it's not a stone that would be precious, I suppose. The destructive test that I would do would be to look at the cleavage in a stone, and most of the stones with cleavage that is very obvious is fluorite and calcite, and stones where there's no great inherent value to the stone as well. So I think a destructive test should always be last resort, particularly if you're dealing with a stone with a high value, and there will generally always be someone that you can take the stone to truly test it and identify it for what it is. Has anyone there done a destructive test, or perhaps they've scratched a stone to see what it is?
Not really, but basically in coral people try to do slightly they use a thin needle, extremely thin needle, and they dip it in like nitric acid, if I'm not mistaken, and they try to scratch the coral and try to check like what is the internal matter. Yeah.
So if you were to do that test, it'd be recommended to do on your rough, or on an area that's not going to be seen, perhaps if it's a piece of jewelry. But yeah, generally it's it's something that I wouldn't do. But that's me personally anyway. And can you briefly describe growth helix on rough crystals? So they're on the surface on natural crystal faces, growth helix, and so they're small mounds. They're in relief on the surface of a crystal, and they're absolutely fascinating. And you can't always see them with the eye. There are some incredible growth helix on crystals that you need some pretty powerful equipment to see them, but they're most often evidence of spiral growth, and the pattern that you can see might look like a rounded mound, but generally it's geometric in nature, and it'll look like a 3, 4, or 6-sided shape in this pattern. And so they're generally viewed with magnification, and it's as I said, generally evidence of spiral growth, and it's a reflection of the internal symmetry of the stone, the internal crystal structure. So on a beryl crystal, as an example, they will appear to be 6-sided hexagonal growth helix, or on a cubic stone, like on an octahedral face, you're more likely to see you'll see a triangular shape. So the geometric nature of them is dependent on the crystal system of the crystal that you're viewing them on as well. So many interesting features on the natural surface of crystals that we can only really see with magnification. So I'd encourage all of you to have a look and look at some images online of what growth helix look like. And I've got a link to an incredible scientific paper that speaks about growth helix as well, that I can send over to you to get a better understanding of what they are and what they can look like as well. Are there any other questions from anyone?
Hi.
Hi.
Actually, I'm doing my Pearl graduate course right now.
Pearl?
So in yesterday's class, we saw that the crystal system of Pearl was orthorhombic. Can you please explain that, ma'am?
So pearls are formed of aragonite platelets. You said pearl, right?
Yes, pearls.
Pearls, yes. And so the nacre on the pearl, which gives that beautiful iridescent sheen on the outside of the pearl, it's actually microscopic platelets of aragonite crystals that make that up. And so aragonite is a mineral, and so it has its own crystal system as well. So you're not going to look at the pearl and see an aragonite formation, but under a microscope, if you were to look at the platelets that actually are layered like scales that they're deposited on the outside of the pearl, very, very fine layers of aragonite crystals. So it's the aragonite that has the crystal system, not the pearl.
Oh, okay, ma'am.
Yeah. Pearls are fascinating. And in gemology, there's obviously a whole subject of organic materials, and I definitely had a new appreciation for a mollusk creating a pearl after studying how they form. Very, very unusual. My personal, I guess what fascinates me quite a lot are actually fossils and meteorites as well. And so I buy and sell quite a few of those too. And it's very, very interesting. Any other questions at all?
Hi, Stacey. Thank you so much for speaking with us today.
Hi.
I was wondering if you could talk to us about your brand. I was looking it up and it looks so cool. If you could speak more about how you decided to relate crystals and healing and what the process looks like.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if this is the right space to speak about that. But what I will say is that I love crystals, and I'm a firm believer in mindfulness and meditation as well. And so I guess, I've created a brand that blends those two things together. And yeah, I think crystals can really make us feel really good, and I love sharing the scientific knowledge and the gemological properties with all different areas of people that collect stones and collect crystals as well. So yeah, but certainly, can connect with me online and can chat to you more about it.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It has yeah. Was there another question there? I will just add, just going back to the first question about a career in gemology and a career in the world of crystals as well. I think if I had have gone back 10 years ago or 15 years ago and asked myself what I was going to do with my qualification and what job there was out there for me, I probably wouldn't have had any idea that I would be running a business and doing what I do full time. And I think it can be quite hard and quite challenging to not see the finish line of where you want your career to go. But the one thing that's worked for me in what I do is to ensure that whatever I'm doing, I'm really passionate about it, and to not worry if there's space or a role for me out there, but just continue to share my passion and continue to share my knowledge with anyone that is happy to listen to it. And gradually you will build a brand and build and find a space for yourself in the industry. When I first started Illuna, I was definitely the only, as far as I was aware, particularly in Australia, one of the only gemologists in this crystal space. And what I've been able to do is to create my own career in this space simply just by following what makes me really excited. And I would encourage all of you that if you're interested in one particular area or one particular stone or one particular subject of what you're studying, if you continue to learn and apply yourself and study and network as much as you can, you'll be able to create a career that you may never thought be possible as well. Okay. Any last questions?
Which crystal system do you like, Stacey?
Sorry?
Which is the crystal system that you like and why?
Which crystal system?
You like and why? Amorphous, there are cubic, there is different kinds of crystal system that we have. Which is the best one that you like?
Hands down, cubic. No questions asked. I would be happy. I'm not sure if anyone else there agree. I mean, I like it for many reasons. One, it's simple. So nothing beats a simple cubic crystal, really. But I'm actually a collector of pyrite. Pyrite is my favorite mineral. And I collect pyrite. I'm fascinated with it. Obviously, it's gold, it's shiny, it makes me feel good. It ticks all the boxes, right? Especially someone that loves jewelry as much as I do as well. But I specifically collect octahedral pyrite, which is quite hard to get a hold of. I'm just absolutely in awe of Mother Nature and the shapes that are produced in stones. And anytime I meet someone that is not as excited about crystals as I am, if I give them a pyrite cube, in 5 minutes, they've changed their mind. And to me, that's really exciting as well, because I get other people excited about crystals as well. So pyrite, definitely. And the cubic crystal system, absolutely.
What do you think about opals?
Opals?
Yeah.
Opals would be another favourite stone. And what I really love about opals is how they achieve their play of colour, which are those beautiful spectral flashes, is truly unique. Other crystals achieve their colour because of inclusions, because of an element in their composition. If they're idiochromatic or if they're allochromatic, they'll achieve their colour from a trace element in the environment, like quartz or topaz as an example. But what I love about opal is that the play of colour is, it's really a bit of a miracle, because you're relying on this perfect environment and a perfect stacking of internal microscopic silica spheres. And if there's any issue with that stacking, if they become odd sizes or if they're not stacked symmetrically, the result is something, so different. A piece of common opal like pink Peruvian opal or dendritic opal really lacks in value, and I don't want to say lacks in beauty, because every stone, there's a reason to appreciate it, but it's this really fine, delicate line that has to be for it to form. And I just find that completely fascinating. Obviously, I'm Australian, I'm in Australia, and Australian opals are famous worldwide. And growing up in Australia as well, I always thought they were a bit daggy, and it's something that your grandmother would give you or your grandmother would wear. It wasn't really very trendy. But after studying gemology, I absolutely fell in love with them and thought they were just the coolest thing ever. To think how they get their play of colour, and in the dark, an opal doesn't have that play of colour. You really need light for it to be seen. So it's a really interesting phenomena how play of colour is achieved. So I like them.
I like them.
Good. Yes.
I have a question, Stacey. Some interesting question.
Yeah.
Like we have glass. Now, glass is silicon dioxide, correct? Correct me if I'm wrong. Okay. Glass follows amorphous system.
Glass is yes.
Amorphous. and it is silicon dioxide. Quartz crystal is also silicon dioxide. But when we rub two quartz together, it creates fire. But when we rub two glass together, it doesn't create fire. Is it because of the crystal system, or like how is it? What is your take on that?
Well, glass lacks internal crystalline structure. So whilst it is silicon dioxide, it doesn't have that internal arrangement of atoms like quartz. So quartz has had the environment and the time where the atoms have been able to bond to each other in that trigonal crystal system, in that spiraled growth. And so those properties, those piezo and pyroelectric properties they're able to exist. Whereas with glass, and it's amorphous, there's no internal crystalline structure. So those electrical properties don't exist there. So you've got glass, which, man-made glass, or even volcanic glass like obsidian, which has cooled so quickly that there's no internalized structure that's been created. Whereas quartz, the formation of quartz happens over hundreds of thousands to millions of years. And so those atoms have been able to bond to each other in that way. Glass will often have grains of quartz. So think of it sort of in a cryptocrystalline formation like agate or jasper or chalcedony. So it's lacking that internal crystalline structure. So it doesn't have the C-axis.
And in nature, it is twined like quartz.
Sorry?
In nature, it is twined like it doesn't have that piezoelectric effect.
No.
Only the synthetic quartz has it. Right?
Sorry?
The synthetic quartz has the piezoelectric effect, right? Like.
Yeah, quartz. That's right. Non-twinned quartz. Yeah. There's some really great videos out there on YouTube as well about piezo and pyroelectric properties and how crystals are applied in different areas of life. Actually, the synthetic quartz industry, it's suspected that it's going to be worth over $8 billion within the next 10 years as well. More and more synthetic quartz crystals, hydrothermal quartz crystals are used for different electrical properties as well. So it is very, very valuable.
But quartz are found abundant in nature, right? Why synthetic quartz?
Because of the purity. When you're dealing with quartz well, first of all, it's much more, more productive, more efficient to form the crystals in a laboratory, because you can form large, completely clear, inclusion-free quartz that is ideal for electronics and for commercial use. Whereas to find quartz that is completely inclusion-free and the right internal structure for those, for that application, it can be very hard. And the quantity that's needed at the moment for different uses, you're going to need a larger amount. So I suppose it's almost like, having a farm for different vegetables or whatever it might be, rather than just trying to forage out in nature to find what you need. So they've got the ability to produce, quite a lot of crystal. And most quartz will have impurities in it, as well, internal healed fractures, and they're going to impair the crystal's ability to function at its most optimal as well. What's everyone there? What are your favorite stones, favorite crystals? Does anyone else want to share?
I like the color of an aquamarine. I mean, it's got a lot of, in jewelry, it looks quite, it looks very nice. And aquamarine jewelry from the past 2 years has actually picked up quite a bit. So opals have also started. I mean, color stone jewelry in India has actually picked up from the last 2.5 to 3 years. And yeah, there is quite a big market for color stones and gemstones in general. Before it was just diamonds and the navaratnas, the 8, 9 stones, but now they're playing with kyanites and a lot of other stones as well by
Yes.
reducing the price as well, and also utilizing such colors in jewelry.
Yeah, that's true. I can see that here as well. The coloured stone industry is growing quite a lot. I think a lot of people are becoming more aware of, the diamond industry perhaps, and wanting something really unique, wanting something that is that's different as well. And also, your money can go a lot further, I suppose, if you're getting an aquamarine or even a morganite or a different coloured sapphire as well. So it's good. It's good to see. It's good to see more people are getting interested in the coloured stones.
So is it a big market worldwide as well when it comes to this gemstone jewelry? Like, is it a big market even in Australia?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. We've got some really incredible designers here in Australia that utilise not only coloured stones, but really interesting included stones, even natural crystals and all sorts of semi-precious stones as well. So we're obviously known for our coloured diamonds here in Australia, pink and yellow. And also our sapphires too, party coloured sapphires. But the coloured stone jewellery industry here is quite big, and it's growing all the time.
So in terms of semi-precious stones, what are the stones that are used most often in jewelry?
Here in Australia, sapphires, different coloured sapphires, tourmalines, different aquamarine and morganite beryl and emerald for that matter as well. They're probably the most popular coloured stones. There's a lot of beautiful garnets as well that we have here in Australia, different colours, not necessarily coming from Australia, but they're used quite a bit in jewellery as well.
Thank you.
Sorry?
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I wanted to know how the market in Australia functions when it comes to jewelry.
Oh, yes. Yeah, definitely coloured. We love coloured. We love diamonds. Who doesn't? But definitely coloured stones as well.
And you mentioned something about included stones being used very well in jewelry. So can you give me an example of that? Like, I can't really picture that.
Yeah, so quartz, the quartz family of stones has a lot of really interesting inclusions. So rutilated quartz, as an example, is used in jewellery. Especially, there are some beautiful faceted stones that you can get. Interesting colour zoning and colour banding in other stones as well. Even quartz varieties, tourmalines and sapphires as well. Diamonds also. I mean, have you heard the term salt and pepper diamonds, which are essentially just heavily included?
Diamonds.
Yeah, salt and pepper diamonds. They have lots of little, carbon in them. Yeah, they're quite popular as well, I suppose, because you can have a diamond and it looks quite interesting, even though it lacks that traditional brilliance and faceting that you would normally see. They're often rose cut. I was part of the process of one of my girlfriends, of her engagement ring, and in the end we went for a stone that actually had quite a big inclusion through the table facet, but it was of another diamond crystal. And whilst traditionally on paper perhaps it's lacking the right clarity rating, but she loved it, and she loved the fact that it had an unusual inclusion in it. So perhaps it's being friends with me for 20 years. She's, gotten used to liking inclusions, but it made the stone unique. So she was able to have a really beautiful D-colour 2-carat diamond, but it had its own unique characteristic that felt really special to her as well. And so I think, that's something that's changing too, people's knowledge around stones. Are there any other pyrite lovers there, or am I the only one? And is there any?
I like
Sorry?
hematite. I like hematite. Maybe the
Hematite?
Yes.
Yeah, cool.
Hi, this might be an off-topic question, but I wanted
Yeah.
to know what are your views on lab-grown diamonds?
Lab-grown gems?
Diamonds, yeah.
Oh, diamonds. Oh, I don't know. I'm not sure that I really have much of an opinion on this topic. Diamonds are, it's interesting, right? So on the one hand, you've got a stone that looks the same, can act the same. You know, you've got two diamonds of the same color, clarity, size, sitting side by side. One's lab grown, one's from the earth. I think at the end of the day, the preference of the person comes down to what they would prefer. They want something lab grown or natural. I personally love the idea of natural stones because you've got that history and the incredible journey that stone has gone through to get to that point. On the other hand, you're saving some money, which is always great, right? Especially if it's an engagement ring. You can spend that money on a honeymoon, on the wedding, on so many other things. But I think the main concern for me would be the transparency and ensuring that the stone is being sold as what it is. It's being sold as a lab-grown synthesized stone, and ensuring that there is transparency and there is when selling. I think that would be the only concern for me. But again, this is not the space of diamonds isn't one that I'm very well versed at, I suppose.
Thank you.
Yeah. I would be happy to receive a piece of jewelry with a lab-grown diamond, as long as the person tells me that it is, then it's fine. But not a lab-grown emerald. No. They look vastly different for one. So are you all in first year, second year, or a mixture?
It's actually a mix of a lot of individuals of different age groups. So I think the youngest one here is 19, and the oldest is about 27.
Okay.
And
Cool.
yeah, I think most of us have come from a jewelry background or a gems background. Some of us
Yeah.
here are learning jewelry designing and stuff like that.
Brilliant. Well, there's endless possibilities, I suppose, with jewelry design and using traditional faceted stones or cabochons, or using some really rare and unusual pieces like meteorites or fossils in your designs as well. So there's someone out there to wear everything. Okay. Well, I think that might be all the questions. Is that right?
Any more questions?
So I had a question. Feldspa as a group belong to monoclinic system or not?
If my memory serves me correctly, yes. But I believe there are. Yeah, I believe the minerals are mostly to the monoclinic crystal system, but it's not for all of them. I don't believe, because as a group, there's a group of minerals, right? So there's a huge variety of different minerals that belong to the feldspar group. And I'm on the spot and I can't think of the other. But I'm pretty sure they're all monoclinic. Well, the ones in my head are anyway.
Gotcha. Thank you.
I think you'd have to look at the individual minerals in that group that you're wanting to look at. because there's a huge range of minerals that belong to that group. Yeah, I was just saying that it's a big group, so there's multiple minerals that belong to the feldspar group. Most of them are monoclinic, but I'm fairly certain that there are some triclinic minerals in that group as well. So I don't think you can blanket a group belonging to one crystal system. It'd be like, you know, blanketing the group of zeolite minerals as an example to one crystal system, and I'm pretty sure there's about 3 or 4 different crystal systems that those minerals can form in. They have quite different chemical compositions, the different feldspars, so they have different crystallographic properties too. Any last questions before we finish?
No question? No, the student doesn't have any question.
Sorry, there's no more questions?
No question.
Okay.
Yeah, because it's a tough subject. I mean, crystallography is a very tough subject. So that's why, yes. I mean, it's a vast subject as well.
Very, very much. It's a very big subject. And as I said right at the start, you know, it spans across so many different industries as well. So the crystallography that we touch on during gemology is really just, it's not even the tip of the iceberg. It goes much further than that. And there's always research being done in this space as well. And whilst I, you know, been doing this for a long time, I'm always surprised by different stones that I'm sourcing and the different formations that they form in as well. And it's something that you can always keep learning in as well. And so it's important to continue to read and research and lean on your peers. And you know, and I've got some incredible teachers that I still go to for questions and ask and be curious all the time as well. So, yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. This has been great to chat to all of you. There were some really great questions that you were asking today as well. And yeah, stay curious, stay passionate, keep learning, and just, yeah, follow your heart and your passions in this space, and you'll have a wonderful career.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, everyone.